Hey guys, this is my leak. This is the My Taught You podcast. Today is Sunday, April 9th, 2017. I am here, obviously, having my coffee. It's Sunday morning, sitting in my breakfast room, getting ready to talk to you. This podcast is going to cover negotiating, and I have a finance sort of new money question. I'm going to do these podcasts in the style that I started off doing them. So 5 years ago, when I started podcasting, I would get a thought. I would run to my computer, my printer, and I would snatch off a piece of paper and I would just write down the general thought, what I knew I wanted to talk about. And then I would do my infamous 5 points. And I think it is just natural to back then, I didn't know any podcast, and so there were no podcasts to listen to. There was nothing to compare my style to. There was nothing to know that if what I was doing was effective. It was just a way for me to quickly get off a sufficient amount of thoughts. And I think over time, when you start listening to other podcasts, it's very easy to become influenced. So this is me making sure that I am sticking with my original style, regardless of who's doing what, right? So I'm going to talk about negotiating. I'm going to talk about finances. But before I get into that, I want to let you know that this podcast is brought to you by FreshBooks. You know that I always tell you that you have to finish one thing at a time to build momentum. So often you guys will write me, how do I do this? How do I do this? And then how do I do that? And it's like, how do you finish the first step that will take you to the second step? So our sponsor, FreshBooks, wants you to build momentum for your business this year. How? By freeing up your time so that you can focus on taking your steps. FreshBooks has created really easy to use cloud accounting software for those of us who are self-employed, those of us who are freelancers, who'd rather spend their time working on their business and their projects versus dealing with mountains of paperwork and basically being sort of like accounting, right? So FreshBooks has been around for a while, but recently they started using everything that they've learned in the past 13 years about how freelancers work, and they rebuilt their platform from the ground up. And they are hooking up my listeners with a free 30-day unrestricted trial. Just go to freshbooks.com/mytaughtyou and enter My Taught You in the How Did You Hear About Us section to try it. I used FreshBooks when I first started out. I love it. So that is something that I can definitely tell you. It was super easy. Helps you stay on top of your finances, which is super important because that's what we're going to talk about today. So first thing I want to talk about is negotiating. I think you guys know that I have been an entrepreneur for the past, I would say 7 years, and I don't have a ton of experience negotiating in the job setting, but I do feel like negotiating period starts with your emotions and how you feel about money. And over the years, I have stayed away from the topic because I feel like money is so emotional, similar to love. But I said, you know what, I'll take a stab at it, and I will tell you how I negotiate, and I will give you my thoughts on money. And I think I've shared that a bunch of times, that when it comes to me giving advice, all I can do and all anybody can do is give you advice from their perspective, which is based on their experiences. So everything that I say will not apply. And that goes for anybody that you may listen to. It's like I always say, take what you need, leave the rest on the table or on the floor. But as far as negotiating goes, I think before you even think about how you plan on negotiating or what you want to negotiate, you have to think about your internal feelings about money, right? So most of our feelings about money stems from the way that we were raised. How did your parents handle money? How was money handled in your household? Was it a secretive thing where you guys always broke? What in what ways were you sort of shaped in the home when it comes to money? There is a lot of fear based around money. Oh, I wouldn't spend that. I wouldn't do that. There is a lot of shame when it comes to money. Who we feel like we are, what we can do, what we can afford, what we want people to think about us. And then there's a lot of anger, right, around money. Just who has what, who deserves what. And so those are the things that you have to think about, is how strongly money is connected to our emotions, right? So money validates us. It does. Money makes us feel like we are someone, or it makes us feel like we are not someone. So before you start a single negotiation, I think that it would behoove you to get to a place where you have a healthy relationship with money, because it doesn't matter how much money you make if you are uber emotional about it. So if you are bad at handling a little money, you will be bad at handling a lot of money. And I have this quote from Susie Orman, whom I adore when it comes to giving just basic financial tips. She has written several books, but she said, people really do not have a clue at all. They think the reason they are miserable, that they are an emotional wreck, is because they have absolutely no money. They honestly think that if they had more money, they would have fewer problems. The problem is that it's not true. The reason they don't have more money is because of how they feel about their life and who they are. Who you are determines what you have and get to keep. You define your money. You define the things around you. But money and the things around you can never truthfully define who you are. So, I'll tell you a story. The one time I negotiated when I had a job, and this is a kind of a not good way, but listen, all I have are my experiences. So I was working at a job, and at the time I was a few months away from getting my raise and promotion that would have put me at $40,000. And I got offered a job, and I think the pay was somewhere like they were offering me, let's just say 60 to leave, which would have been a really significant raise, right? $20,000 increase. And I hadn't read any books, and this is pre, internet Googling and all that good stuff, being able to find really good articles. And so my mindset was this: if someone is coming to me at the place that they know that I am employed, offering me work, they must think I'm really good, right? Because they know that I have a job. But okay. So I countered 20 more thousand. So I was close to making 40. They were offering, I think, like 60. I think I countered to 80, and I ended up getting like 70 something, right? So that's really all that happened. And that was really just a sort of like, why not? It's easier to be like, why not, when you have a job, right? It was like, I think it was less about me feeling like, oh, I'm going to have all this money, and more just this thought of, when you start thinking about, and we are going to talk about worth and value, but you clearly see my value. What am I worth to you, kind of thing, and less about, I feel like I deserve and all of this. It's because worth and value in my thought process come down to, and I have some notes on it, the worth and value comes down to the organization's or the person's salary range or budget for the position, right? So I think a lot of times when people are negotiating and it's like, I feel like I'm worth 80,000 or I feel like I'm worth 100,000, that could very well be true. But that depends on what the organization's budget is for the position. So if they don't have $100,000 budgeted for the position, meaning that's the value of the position within their organization, right? So if I could, let me try to explain that. So let's just say that you do PR and the company has budgeted 70,000 annually for their PR, but you feel like you're worth 100,000. And then you take it personal that they don't want to give you that, and you get upset and you're angry because you feel like you've got your MBA or whatever, your master's communication, and you feel like, you have all this experience and I'm a $100,000 PR person, but that's not what the company has budgeted. And PR may not be what truly drives their business. Maybe they need more engineers, or maybe they need more, like they need somebody who's stronger with money. And so that's what you have to understand. I feel like the big picture that people miss when they're negotiating is understanding the organization's needs. How do they value what you bring to the table? And so maybe a better thing to do is find companies that have a greater need for your service, right? So I think, we talk about worth and value where, I'm worth this or I'm worth that. We tend to use the terms interchangeably, but these words are not synonymous when you are negotiating in the career space. What is the value of what you're doing to this company and how much is it worth to them? I think, what is it? I made some notes, and I hate when I make my notes well in advance because I'm like, what was I talking about? It says you view your worth as the amount of money you expect to receive for your level of training or experience. But that is not the case because, like I said, it's more based on the person who's handing out the dough, what they need. So another thing I think you should think about is the market value, right? I think that, and I have right here, just because you think you're a $50,000 writer or photographer or hairstylist doesn't mean that you'll get that if that's not the value that the market has on it. So we all know that if you are a hair and makeup person in, let's just say, New York, it's different than being a hair and makeup person in, let's just say, Austin, Texas, because of the demand for it. So in New York or LA, you have a lot of jobs. There's a greater demand for professional, maybe hair and makeup, because there's a lot of filming, there's a lot of magazines, and that's where there's a higher demand. So the price can be driven up. But if you are in a place that is maybe smaller and there is a lower demand for this sort of service, the market rate is going to be different. So you want to make sure that you have some sort of understanding. What is the going rate in this area? And also, I think sometimes as a freelancer, understanding why, let's just say, a true agency can charge maybe a certain rate versus a freelancer. So I was a freelance PR person operating as an agency, if you will, but true agencies have so many resources, right? They have so many people working on so many projects, so that yes, they may have hired you as their sort of food PR person, but let's just say they have a restaurant idea, and within your agency there are restaurant people. You can provide them with resources, which allows you to take your price up, because it's like, yes, I know you hired me for this, but behind me, I have tons of resources. I think agency rates also are up because they are able to pay for a ton of different sort of services and back in the day, it used to be clipping services, but they're paying for tons of resources that maybe a smaller freelancer, you may not have certain subscriptions and certain abilities to put things on the wire, or things that a larger agency may be able to do, which is why they can do it. Also overhead, if you're freelancing, you don't have as much overhead as, let's just say, a brick and mortar agency that's paying people's insurance and stuff like that. So you want to make sure that you understand your position in the space, and not getting caught up with, well, this agency charges this, so I'm going to charge that. But it's like, you have to understand all of the things a proper sort of agency brings to the table. And also thinking about, when it comes to market value, or your value, if you don't take this job or project on, how hard will it be for them to find someone like you, right? That's something else that I think about when you're thinking about what's my price. So if I'm speaking professionally, I would say that I have a stronger set of skills. I don't know. I would say that I'm a strong sort of marketer, a strong idea smith. I'm strong in areas of execution. Like, I'm a great sort of like mapper, if you will. Just making up stuff, y'all. But it's like, I can come up with an idea. I can put together a plan to execute. I can put together the proper people, like find the best people to put this together, and I can execute swiftly with few flaws or errors, right? So how hard will it be for them to find someone like me? I think difficult, not impossible, but difficult. But when it comes to like speaking, there are plenty of people who can speak. And so I have a different value as a speaker than I do as a marketer, which is why you'll notice I haven't done much speaking this year, because I was like, look, speaking is not really what I do. I'm a marketer, and I do PR, and I do like execution. I run a company, and until my value for speaking is higher, I need to focus on where my true value is, and make sure that I'm making money. So I am more confident when it comes to negotiating sort of like my rate at like marketing and PR and idea smithing and execution than I am with my speaking. It's like, who am I to try to charge a grip when I know that it would be easy for you to find someone who I think could speak, motivate, or something like that. So I put together a list of tips that I think will help you, mostly for freelancing, but can be applied to jobs. I think I put together some tips on basically how I come up with my rate, and like how I get comfortable with charging whatever it is that I charge. So first thing I think about is, what is my minimum? Before you go into anything, before you approach a client, before you go into your boss's office, before you take a job, what is your minimum? What is the lowest amount of money that you feel like you can take, right? And you have to think about that from a realistic standpoint. So you have to think about, how much money do I really need to live my life, right? I think, let's just say for easy reasons, it could just be $30,000, meaning $30,000 will cover all of my basic expenses and groceries and stuff like that. What are your sort of business expenses? Do you have any? Do you, is it your Wi-Fi? Is it different subscriptions that you may have? You want to add that on. And then they say that you divide that. I think mathematically, I could be wrong, but you can find this sort of equation online. But you want to take that number and divide it by like the number of work days in the year. And that's how much you need to make per day. So if you count Monday through Friday, do 5 days a week, figure out how many work days there are in the year, and divide that by whatever use that number and divide your total overhead, and figure out how much minimum you need to make per year. And that will help you determine your day rate, how much money you need to make every 2 weeks and how much money you need to make per year. And I think a lot of times we are similar to how I was when I first started working, just willy nilly with the numbers. We don't even really know how much we need. We just have put these numbers in our head of like, I'm a such and such $1,000 person, or I don't do anything for less than $1,000. But you need to figure out in real life, what is my minimum? What is the lowest amount of money that I can take for a project that I can actually live off of? And that helps you to be less emotional when you're negotiating, because I think a lot of times when people offer us something low, we internalize that as like, oh my God, so-and-so is disrespecting me. Like, she really thinks that I would do that for $100. And it's not that person's disrespecting you. They're coming at you based on their budget for the position or project. And so if you want to turn something down, and that's the thing that really kind of bugs me about negotiating, and that's what like made me want to do this podcast, is that people take it personal. And it's just like, I don't have that kind of budget allocated for this part of the business, right? Like, it is my job to know how much money I have to spend on my business and in which areas. And if I'm overspending to appease you, then I'm not a good leader, and I'm not a good business owner. So when someone doesn't have the budget, all you have to do is just say, thank you so much for thinking of me. You can let them know that rate is not, is unfortunately, not your minimum. And then they may say, okay, well, what's your minimum? And then from there, you state your minimum and you let people know what their minimum gets you, right? So it kind of bums me out when some people just leave money on the table because they're like, I'm worth more than that. I'm not doing that. It's like, okay, let's just say your budget is, and I'm not that good with math, y'all. As you can see, that's why I'm trying to think of a scenario that makes sense. If your minimum is, let's just say $500, like I will do, like that's as low as I can go, 500, and their budget is like 450. You can be flexible if you want and say, okay, I can do this for you, but this comes with, like you get one pass, like I don't show up, I work it from home, I email you a script, whatever your service is, like you can, if you want to go a little under budget because you just want to take the money, but maybe it gets you less. Or you let them know, if you have $600 or $700, that gets you this. And I just think all too often we put ourselves in scenarios where we know our minimums and we are so dead set on not being flexible about it that we just turn people away or shut people down when we don't really have to. And so like there is someone who has worked for me for years, and she has been pretty much making consistent money from me for probably like 6 years. And when I first started, I was like, this is a real true story. My budget was $100 a week for, I think it was like maybe 2 hours of work Monday through Friday. That's all I had. And it was all virtual. But it's just like, this is what I had. And over the years, the 1 turned to 2, 2 turns to 3, 3 turns to 4, 4 turns to 5. And I think this is just someone who has been, and it has gone up and up, who has just stayed in there and hung in there with me and my business and sort of like watched me grow. So maybe you want to get in on the ground floor with somebody and work your way up with them, which brings me to project-based pricing, which is how you make up your pricing based on a few things. How much do I enjoy working with this person, right? So there are a lot of people and companies that I just really like working with, that I know that I'm going to learn from, and my rate may be based on that. If I know that I'm going to get a great deal of enjoyment from this, my rate maybe is lower. If I know that I am not going to get a great deal of enjoyment out of it, if I know that I am going to be working on something insanely difficult, that also will shape the way I move my price. like I said, can I learn something from working with this person or project that will allow me to charge even more in the future, right? So there might be a scenario based on what your field is, right? I work in the hair space, working with being able to say that I have worked with companies, L'Oreal, Procter and Gamble, Unilever, Carol's Daughter, Shea Moisture, all of these, depending, having a resume of like legacy brands is very important and will help me make money in the future. So you have to think about that. Who are your sort of like legacy brands or clients that will allow you to be able to charge, let's just say, someone else or someone up and coming in the future? That's how you have to think about it. Will this job provide excitement or enjoyment? I really feel like we don't put enough emphasis on happiness at our jobs. We feel, we get so caught up on negotiating dollars, but there are a few dollar amounts that will be able to continuously drag you into work every day. So, money is good, but money is not enough when you're thinking about just total enjoyment. Liking your job, getting up and having a smile on your face, enjoying the people you work with, being able to laugh, having a sense of accomplishment. All of that stuff matters. And another tip that I feel like people just waste so much time: find out people's budgets early. So I'm good for that, and it's really more of like to cut down on wasting time. So if somebody approaches me and they're like, I want you to do this, and this, I let the first thing I do is sort of let them know what the cost is for their request within my company, because there's no need of me flying out and meeting with you. There's no need of you coming to my office. There's no need of sitting down having coffee, dinner, and all that if you don't really know what you're up against. And you don't have to do it in like a real shut down sort of way, but you should find out what people's ranges are. What is your range? What are you looking to spend? If they don't have one, which a lot of people don't, give them a ballpark range of your services from the low end all the way to the high end. So I offer a range of services within my company, and I have a really small, like a minimum, right? I have a company minimum. This is the smallest thing that we can do with you, and this is the largest thing that we can do with you. And here are a few things in between, right? So have that together. And that will help, that will save you time, and that will help you. One mistake that I feel like some people make when they are negotiating is they don't know the product and they don't know the brand. They're just negotiating from what they feel like they're worth or deserve. You need to know the business or the company that you're researching. Just because you like it is not good enough. Do your research. It's like, look for their competitors. Show them that you cared enough about this job to look up their competition to ensure that you can provide something better. So it's like when you're throwing your rate out on the table or you're saying what you want, you have to have some ammunition to back up why you believe it's worth it, right? And a lot of times I feel like people don't take the time to research the person they're pitching, the brand they're pitching, the product they're pitching. It's just like, oh, this seems cool. I would really like to do this. These are the services that I offer. This is the amount. And that's just not good enough. The next thing that I have is, what's your frosting? What's your extra special thing that you do that makes the client or the job feel special? You have to have some frosting. I feel like I have frosting when I'm doing my work. You have to be able to pile on that extra sweetness. And how do I do mine? Here's an example of some of my extra sweetness. I may tell the client, I'd be more than happy to come over 3 days prior to the shoot, to be sure that you are comfortable with this, and that. It's like, what am I going to do outside of the job, outside of the work, to make you feel even better about spending your money with me? I will fly to New York and sit down with you. I'll Skype you and go over these photos with you. I will be available around the clock for you. You have to pick something and figure out your frosting, because we are in a competitive space, and there are people who can do things. It's like, how many people can do what I'm doing? How many other photographers can take great photos? But what is your frosting? Send some things in advance of the meeting to show how you get down, right? So there is nothing like, when you're pitching or you are negotiating, you are not the first person to ask for more. You are not the first person to throw out like a big dollar amount. But what you can make sure you are is the first person who shows why they charge this amount or why they're worth this amount. So it's like, when you go to something that I think that people should do is to immerse themselves in the luxury experience, right? So if you go to a luxury resort, and when you show up, as soon as you get off however you got there, car service, they've got 2-3 people there to greet you with smiles. They've got 2 sort of like welcome drinks. Everything is considered. You have to figure out how to do that within your business or even within your career. How do you do everything considered? How do you send your resume or everything that you do, your presentation, in advance of the meeting, right? So maybe a week before you present to a client, you send a box of items to set the mood for what it is that you're doing. Maybe you pitch, maybe you're a florist, and in advance of your floral presentation, you send something considered to deck out the office. And I'm just going off the top of my head, but like, these are things that I would do in advance of, to show them, to give them an appetizer of what they're going to be getting when they work with someone like you, right? It's like, I'm going to let you know that working with me will be the best experience of your lifetime. Sure, there are other people that take pictures, but there is nobody who works like me. So maybe you can send a couple of ideas in advance of, and you can't be afraid to give away an idea or two to a client, to let them know what you feel like you can do. And if they hire somebody and pay somebody else to do it, oh well, like, that's just the risk that you take when you're pitching. No risk, no reward. And so I think that, like, you have to be a little risky when you're doing something. Nothing, people will just send me a generic proposal. Okay, I want to do this for you. And it's like, okay, like, that's not going to get me out of my seat. So show me what you can do, or what you're willing to do, or give me a taste of what it's going to be like working with you. And that's just something you have to think about. That's what I call your frosting. Like, that's my frosting. I try to provide an incredible experience when you work with me or my team, is that, when you work with me, I provide a particular brand of service, but everyone else on my team also provides that wonderful brand of service of just like courteousness, follow through, checking in. How's everything going? I always want to make sure that you are happy working with us. And even if sometimes people walk away unhappy, that's just a part of that's just the nature of the beast, but we know we did our best. So those are my personal sort of tips on negotiating. Like I said, I was going to do all this research, and I was just like, you know what, stick to what you do, my league. And what I do is just giving you tips off the dome, how I have managed to get here. So I have a listener question, and I'm going to, at the end of this podcast, I'm going to just tell you where I am with my money now, sort of like how I've managed to, what my sort of like financial journey has been like. But let me get to this question. I can't believe I did all of that 33 minutes without a sip of coffee. I must be on fire. Or not. Hold on. Okay, so here we go with the question. As always, thank you for being you and doing all that you do. You're welcome. I'm in a positive life transition right now, and your podcasts have helped me get here. Nothing makes me happier than hearing about you all's positive life transitions. I read the emails when you send them. I see the tweets. I see when you write me. Thank you so much for just letting me know how you are on the positive upswing. So here she goes. I am a 27-year-old with horrible finances. I started working in education as a teenager, started as a camp counselor, then began as an after school person, and then substitute teacher and general swing person at the age of 18 while I attended college full time. I have transitioned to a different field where I'll be making close to six figures when I start my new job in a few weeks. In the past, I've been neglectful, but there are other things that concern me. Do I need an accountant or a financial advisor? How did you find your accountant, and how did you know you could trust him? Also, I want to buy a home property in a few years. I currently live at home with my family. I know at this age I should have my own apartment, but quite honestly, aside from the societal opinion that I shouldn't live with my family, I don't mind. I mention this because with this money, I can finally afford to look at an apartment within a few months. Would it be wiser to just stay home and save since I have a lot of catching up to do? I'd, of course, be paying rent a couple of $100s while living with my family, but nothing compared to how much I would spend on a New York City apartment, at least $1,700 to $2,300 without a roommate. I have a lot of catching up to do. So my goal is to live off of half of my income for the next year or two, which would be easy since it's still double than what I was making before. But I know that's not enough, and I want to go about this the right way. How do you go from zero to hero with your finances? So I put together a couple of bullet points. First of all, congratulations on this positive life upswing. Making more money will be helpful. But the first thing that I would tell you to do is to go through your trick off period. So my wealth manager at Morgan Stanley jokingly always says that we all have that trick off period. When you new money, you got to see what that feels like. So there's going to be those first few checks, you are going to ball out a little bit. And I think that to not do that will probably just make it harder to save in the long run. So get the purse, get the dinner, take the vacation, do the thing that you want to do early, get a little bit of trick off out of your system, give yourself maybe 3 months, give yourself 4 months, set a time limit on when you're going to enjoy this newfound money. You don't have to start off being so disciplined with it, but definitely have a cutoff period of okay, I'm gonna trick off for 3 months, 4 months, but come this one particular month, I'm going to be better. I think that you have to definitely work on your emotions around money, figure out, why you have these 4 credit cards, no savings, why you've been so neglectful, because I said this earlier in the podcast, it doesn't matter how much money you have if you sort of have that broke mentality, right? It's having more money. If you spend every dime that you get, it doesn't matter. And to me, having money is about how much you have left over after you've gotten all the necessities and the things that you wanted. What's that chunk of money left over that you can then save? That to me is how much money you have. It's not the paycheck. It's not what you buy. It's what you have left. So once you hit your deadline, I would start aggressively getting rid of your debt. You never know what the future may hold with this job or, with this income. So I think a good idea would be to get yourself out of debt first. I would get down to 1 credit card and use it only to get something steady, like maybe groceries that you can pay off this bill every month. Credit cards are not to buy what you can't afford right now. They are a means to keep your credit score intact. That's how I feel about it. Somebody may tell you something different, but that's just how I roll. But before you even get to a place of getting an apartment or anything, I think you should start to work on your credit score. Your credit score, things are so much easier. The apartment, all of that is going to be so much easier when you have your credit right. So I would find out what your credit score is now. I would print off your report, and I would start taking a bird's eye view, start really looking and saying, what are some things that you need to, I call your critical debt, get all that stuff cleaned up. Get anything IRS, all that stuff. You want to get that stuff off your desk. And work on getting that score up. I have I keep my credit score on my phone. I'm scrolling through it right now to see what's the app that I use. What is this app that I use to manage it's Credit Tracker by Experian. And so every couple of days, I just check on my credit score, and I can tell you when I first started checking my credit, it was like in the 5 something. And now I have worked my way up, hundreds of points. But that's where I was. So work on your credit score. And then you need to pay yourself and save. So save, auto save so that you don't have to think about it. You can get an auto savings account where every 2 weeks it'll just take out however much you want it to, and make sure that the account that you're auto saving into has no debit card, right? So my main savings account, I have an investment account and I have a savings money market account. In order for me to access my money market, I have to go into the bank and get money out of it. So I have made it difficult to get it. And you also want to make sure that it's like non-transferable, like, where you can move the money around. Like you really want to like freeze it up, make it really hard for you to go and get into the savings. And the same thing with my investment account. Like it's still, I'd have to go in or email my wealth manager, and it just I think it takes like a couple days to liquidate the funds. So it just makes it difficult to get to this money. So my financial journey was difficult, I think, because I had a lot of sort of whack emotions when it came to money, just in how I grew up and how my family treated money. But one book that I read was Susie Orman's Young, Broke, and Fabulous. I think that really helped me when I was in my early 20s. You have to make a plan. You are nothing without a plan. You must have aggressive goals for getting things done. So I think that you're kind of like, I think I want to do this. Do I need a financial advisor? Like, you don't need any of that. You need to make a plan, for what you want to do. So I have a plan right now. Is like, what is my financial plan right now? I am down to the last $11,000 of a loan that I need to pay back to myself. So I borrowed money against my investment accounts to put down on my house, meaning instead of taking my cash out of the stock market where it had the possibility of earning more money, I just borrowed money for a smaller interest rate. And so I did that when I bought my house almost 2 years ago. And so I'm down to the last 11 grand on that, which I'm excited about. I'm planning to knock out the rest of my student loan, hopefully by the end of the year. So I have a plan for that. Once those things are done, I'll likely start throwing a bit more money on my house or my car loan. I bought my first brand new car at 37 years old. And so, I want to pay a few extra $100 to kind of get those down. So you have to have a plan and stick with it. Because getting fresh with money just doesn't happen. Like, you have to really make a plan. And so every year I sit down with my accountant, I sit down with my wealth manager, and I just try to say, what sort of plan, what can I do to stay sharp and strong about that? And this also goes, something that is, you ask, how do I learn to trust my accountant? And it's just the thing of like, by trying to make sure I know as much about money as I possibly can before going to someone. And I don't view these people, financial advisors, accountants, these people are not in control of my money. They are, I have hired them to assist me to make better decisions when it comes to money, right? So these are people who do money day in and day out. And so it's basically like why I'd hire an interior designer to help with my home. I know that I have my own style and design and aesthetic, but I go to these people because I know that they have more resources than I would. Interior designers, they're seeing furniture every day. They're on the web and they know where you can get things. That is the same sort of view that you have to have with people who do money. You can't just be like, oh, I don't know, I'm terrible with money. If you cannot be horrible with your finances. Like, I can't remember what you said. What did you say? I'm horrible with finances. The first thing you have to do is get unhorrible. Do not be okay with that. Like, do not settle for being horrible with your finances. So I was talking to a friend that was on the podcast, somebody that was on the podcast, and they were in all this like IRS debt because they were relying on their accountant to pay their taxes. And I'm like, oh no, oh no. I personally mail my checks in. Like, you have to make sure you cannot rely on somebody else to pay your bills. You have to take control of it. Something else that my accountant suggested I do is that, whenever you do something like sort of guilty, like you take this trip, you go out of town, and when you get ready to check out and they ask you, do you want your bill? And you're just like, no. My accountant's like, a lot of companies know that you are afraid to look at the damage. You are afraid, you go to dinner, you ball out with your friends. If you don't look at the bill, you just don't know what could happen. So every month, comb over your bank statement. Just get into the habit of looking at your finances. Do not be in a space of guilt. Look at the check when it comes. Look at the bill when you check out. And you don't have, some people, they don't do it because emotionally it's like, I'm balling, I don't need to see whatever it is, I got it. But people know that too. Look at your finances. So where I am now with my money, I have been making money as an entrepreneur for about 7 years now. I didn't start off making a ton, but I was making enough to take care of myself. So maybe like when I first started off as an entrepreneur, maybe I probably started around like 30, 40, got up to like 50, 60. I was happy. I had already sorted my money issues. And while I didn't have all my ish together, I was out of the cycle of emotional spending. 5 years ago, my income began to increase significantly. And my first plan of attack was to get rid of the critical debt, is what I like to call it. I owed the IRS. I was behind on my student loan. So just the thing that I wanted to do was make sure that I cleaned up as much as I possibly could. And then I went through my jerk off year also. So I said, sometimes that happens. And I still have the proof of some of it, Louboutin heels. I think I have a custom Louis Vuitton bag, a bunch of trips to expensive ass Miami, and just buying excessive things for people and friends. And that's when my accountant came and sat down with me and gave me the if you can't buy two rule. If you can't buy two, you can't afford it. And I just started applying that to all of the sort of like day-to-day crap that we buy. If I can't get two purses, then I don't need one. I don't need to just be buying things and just letting my account go. So I started an investment account. I bought a house. I save aggressively. I live within my means, and I only buy things that I just really enjoy. I stopped giving my money away. Boundaries. I'm not obligated to take care of anyone. Anything that I do is just a nicety. I have absolved myself from like giving so much. I was that person where, I think I've talked about this with friends. Like, I go to dinner with people, and I would always feel like there was a spotlight on me, right? And that's personal. It's like, I would always, like, I sit down and I would feel obligated to pay for the entire table's dinner because I could afford to. And I've done that with like tables of 13. I've done it with tables of 8, tables of 4. Check comes. Oh, I got it. And I just have absolved myself from that. I don't have to do that, right? I can do it if I want to, but I could also be like, y'all want to split it? Like, I can still split checks with people. Like, I don't have, just because I feel like I can't afford something doesn't mean that I have to do that. And so I've just gotten better about that. It's been a long road for me of understanding that I truly earned my position in life. And so I think that in the past, I would discount the amount of sacrifice that I made. It's like, I told y'all, I was getting up at like 4 a.m. for years. The sacrifice that I made of taking very low pay in the beginning of my career because I just wanted to learn. I had 2 jobs. In my 20s. Because I needed to be able to afford my living situation. So I was my apartment building manager, and I had a full-time job in PR. There are a lot of sacrifices that I made, and a lot of books. Like, I think if you guys follow me, you know that I've been sort of studying for years, and it's just been this long long path of understanding that I did sacrifice and I did work, and it wasn't just, there is some level of luck involved. The opportunity presented itself, but I was prepared. And I don't have to feel guilty about that. And I don't have to feel like I have to give that all away. And so, I would say that, in the 2 decades of of being an earning human being, that money is a tool for me to provide, freedom, peace of mind, but it doesn't rule me. I could make more money. Some people may know that or not know that, but it's like I have plenty of friends who make way more money than I do, but there's a different life sacrifice that they have. And it's just like, I don't want to do that. I don't have to have all of it. I don't need every drop from every corner. I turn down money. Like, I have turned down money for speaking because I feel like, my value is not, I can't even say that I'm worth 10K for speaking, because I don't feel like I haven't worked on it enough to have that value. So I'm working on just being better in the space that I know that I have value. So I turn down money. It doesn't rule me. I save because I don't want to feel like I have to do things. I save because in the event that, something in life happens and I can no longer earn money the way that I do now, that I can pivot, that I don't have to panic. I have savings. I am preparing for my future. In the event that I just get tired and I don't want to do it anymore, I'm saving to have that option as well, to say, I no longer want to do this. Sometimes we do stuff and it's like, I have no choice. I have no other way to eat. So that's just sort of where I am, is just preparing for my future, saving, not letting things rule or control me. And I think that is all helpful when it comes to negotiating. So thank you, as always, for listening. You can find me all over the internet, myleak.com, at myleak on Insta, at myleak on Twitter, at myleak on Snapchat. And my day job is curlbox.com, monthly subscription service for hair care products for women with naturally curly hair. Super exclusive, so exclusive you can only become a member 1 day per month. So if you want to become a member, or if you're interested, you can sign up at curlbox.com. Thank you, as always, for listening. Ciao, y'all.